What I'm about to tell you is going to completely change the way you think about the vegetables sitting in your refrigerator right now. And when I reveal vegetable number one, the most powerful one, the one that cardiologists are genuinely stunned by, you are going to understand why thousands of seniors across this country are quietly getting off blood pressure medications they've been taking for years. I'm Dr. Sandra Whitemore, and I need you to hear something important today. More than 65% of Americans over the age of 60 have high blood pressure right now, nearly 2/3 of everyone watching this video. And here is what terrifies me most about that statistic. The vast majority of those seniors believe that their only real option is a pill. A pill every morning, possibly 2 or 3 pills, side effects included, forever. And I've spent 23 years as a cardiologist watching patients resign themselves to that fate. But here is what almost no one is talking about. 3 ordinary vegetables, things you can find at any grocery store in any town in America, work through mechanisms so precise, so scientifically verified, that the results can begin showing up on your blood pressure monitor within hours. Not weeks, hours. And 2 of those vegetables contain a compound that your doctor almost certainly never mentioned to you because it doesn't come in a prescription bottle. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which 3 vegetables they are. You'll understand the specific science behind how each one works. And more importantly, you'll understand why most seniors are either not eating them at all or eating them in the completely wrong way. But before I go any further, I need to ask you something. If what you're learning in this channel is genuinely helping you, if it's giving you information that you couldn't easily find anywhere else, please subscribe right now. My mission is simple: to give every senior in America access to the kind of medical truth that can actually change their life. Now stay with me, because what I'm about to show you starts with a patient story that is going to surprise you. It surprised me. Vegetable number 3, celery. Let me tell you about Robert. Robert was 71 years old, a retired electrician from Columbus, Ohio. Hardworking man his whole life. Practical, no nonsense. When his doctor told him his blood pressure had climbed to 162/98, Robert did what most sensible people do. He filled the prescription, he took the pills, he changed his diet, reduced sodium, gave up most of the foods he loved, and for a while, it helped. His readings came down to around 148/90, still elevated, still concerning, but better. Then his medication was increased, then increased again. By the time Robert came to see me, he was on 2 separate blood pressure medications and still logging morning readings in the 145 to 150 range. He was frustrated. He felt foggy. He was tired all the time. He asked me one simple question: is this just what getting older looks like? I told him no. What I told Robert next was about something he had eaten his entire life without knowing what it was actually doing inside his body. Something his grandmother used to grow in her garden outside Dayton. Something you can buy for less than $2 at any Kroger or Walmart in the country. Celery. Now I know what you're thinking. Celery? That's the vegetable people eat as a diet snack. The one that comes with buffalo wings. That's what's going to help my blood pressure? I hear that reaction constantly, and I understand it. Celery doesn't sound impressive. It sounds like filler food. But here's what the science shows, and this is important. Inside every stalk of celery, there is a naturally occurring compound called phthalate, specifically a form called 3N-butylphthalate, or NBP. And this compound does something remarkable inside your arteries. It directly relaxes the smooth muscle tissue in your artery walls, not by blocking a chemical reaction the way a medication does, by physically easing the tension in the arterial wall itself. When your artery walls relax, they widen. When they widen, blood flows through more easily. Pressure drops. It's the same principle as letting more lane space open on a crowded highway. Traffic moves, the backup clears. But that's not the only thing phthalate does. It also acts as a mild, natural diuretic. That means it helps your kidneys flush out excess sodium and fluid, which is one of the primary ways cardiologists manage hypertension through medication. Celery essentially does a version of both functions that your prescription might be doing, through a completely natural mechanism when you eat enough of it consistently. Now here's where it gets extraordinary. In one documented case that became widely cited in cardiology circles, a man who had elevated blood pressure in the 158/96 range started eating a 1/4 pound of celery every day for 1 week. Just 1 week. His blood pressure came down to normal. Not reduced, normal. That result caught the attention of researchers at one of the most respected medical institutions in the Midwest. The compound phthalate was isolated, studied in the lab, and the researchers described it as working through, quote, a simple and direct mechanism to dilate blood vessels. But here is what I need you to understand, and this is where Robert's story becomes critical. There is a right way and a wrong way to use celery for blood pressure. Robert had been eating celery occasionally, a stalk here, a stalk there, sliced into a salad maybe twice a week. That is not enough. The phthalate compound is present in relatively small concentrations per stalk. You need consistent, daily intake to achieve a meaningful effect. The recommended amount that cardiologists who study this look at is roughly 4 to 6 stalks every single day, not a handful once in a while, every day. Robert started eating 4 stalks of celery every morning. He would chop them into a bowl, add a little lemon juice, and eat them before his breakfast. He also juiced them 2 or 3 times a week for variety. Within 10 days, his morning readings had dropped to 137/84. After 4 weeks, he was consistently at 132/80. His physician, reviewing the numbers, was able to reduce one of his 2 medications. Robert told me he felt clearer, less foggy, more like himself, all from something growing in the produce aisle. But here is what Robert's story reveals about vegetable number 2. Celery works through one specific pathway, relaxing arterial walls. But vegetable number 2 works through 3 separate pathways simultaneously. And that is why, when you combine them, the results get even more significant. Let me show you. Vegetable number 2, spinach. Let me tell you about Dorothy. Dorothy was 73 years old, a retired school librarian from Savannah, Georgia. She was meticulous about her health, took her medication faithfully, walked every morning, ate what she thought was a reasonable diet. Her blood pressure had been managed at around 140/88 for several years. Not dangerous, not ideal, just lingering there like an unwelcome houseguest who never quite left. Dorothy came to me not because of a crisis, but because she was tired of settling. She said something I will never forget. She said, "I don't want to just manage this. I want to actually improve." And that kind of determination, that kind of fight in a 73-year-old woman is something I deeply respect. When I looked at Dorothy's diet, I noticed something immediately. She was eating well by general standards, but she was almost completely avoiding dark leafy greens because she had heard somewhere that they interacted with her medication. That concern I want to address directly right now because it is incredibly common and it leads seniors to avoid one of the most powerful blood pressure foods on the planet. The concern Dorothy had heard relates to spinach, kale, and other dark greens containing vitamin K, and how high doses can interfere with the blood-thinning medication warfarin. That is a real and valid concern for people specifically on warfarin. But the vast majority of blood pressure medications, including ACE inhibitors, beta blockers, calcium channel blockers, and diuretics, have no such interaction with spinach or leafy greens. If you are on warfarin, talk to your doctor before dramatically increasing your green intake. For almost everyone else, this concern is simply not applicable. And avoiding spinach because of it could be costing you real blood pressure control. Here is what spinach does inside your body, and this is where I need you to pay close attention. Because spinach doesn't work through one mechanism, it works through 3. Mechanism 1. Spinach is extraordinarily rich in potassium. 2/3 of a cup of raw spinach contains close to 600 milligrams of potassium. And here is why that matters so much. Your kidneys use potassium to flush excess sodium out of your bloodstream. Sodium, as you probably know, holds water in your body. Water retention increases the volume of blood in your vessels. More blood volume means more pressure against the walls. That is hypertension in its most basic form. Potassium is the natural antidote to that sodium buildup. It essentially tells your kidneys to release the sodium, release the fluid, and take the pressure down. Think of it like opening a pressure valve. Most seniors in America are chronically low in potassium. Not severely deficient, but quietly, consistently, running below optimal levels. And that quiet deficiency is maintaining their blood pressure at a higher level day after day without anyone connecting the two. Mechanism 2. Spinach contains significant amounts of magnesium. Magnesium does something beautifully direct. It physically relaxes the smooth muscle tissue lining your arterial walls. When those walls relax, the arteries open up slightly, blood flows with less resistance, and pressure falls. Research out of Harvard Medical School has identified magnesium as one of the key minerals in blood pressure regulation, and most Americans over 60 are not getting nearly enough of it through their diet. Mechanism 3. This one surprises a lot of people. Spinach is loaded with natural dietary nitrates. Your body takes those nitrates through a conversion process and produces something called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a molecule that acts as a powerful signal to your blood vessels. It tells them to dilate, to open up. Cardiologists actually get very excited about nitric oxide because it's the same mechanism that some prescription heart medications try to trigger artificially. Spinach does it naturally, every time you eat it. So you have potassium counteracting sodium, magnesium relaxing your arterial walls, and nitrates producing nitric oxide that opens those vessels wide. 3 separate pathways, all pushing blood pressure in the same direction. Down. Dorothy started incorporating 2 cups of cooked spinach into her daily routine, sautéed in olive oil with garlic for dinner 3 nights a week, a spinach smoothie blended with banana and almond milk on other mornings. Simple, inexpensive, easy to maintain. After 6 weeks, Dorothy's blood pressure readings had settled at 128/80. Her physician actually called me after reviewing her updated chart because the improvement was, that striking without any medication change. Dorothy told me she felt lighter. Her energy was better. She had less of the headache pressure she'd been chalking up to aging. It wasn't aging. It was a deficiency that spinach corrected. But here is what I need you to understand before we get to vegetable number 1. And this is critical. Celery works on arterial muscle tension. Spinach works through potassium, magnesium, and nitric oxide. Each one is powerful individually. But vegetable number 1 works through a mechanism so rapid, so measurable, and so well documented in clinical studies that cardiologists now use it as a natural benchmark for discussing blood pressure nutrition. I've been building toward this one the entire video. Let me tell you about James. Before I reveal vegetable number 1, I need to stop for just a moment and ask something of you. If you know a senior in your life, a spouse, a parent, a neighbor, a friend, anyone who is struggling with high blood pressure, please share this video with them right now. Pause, send it, and then come back. All right, let me tell you about James. Vegetable number 1, beets. James was 68 years old, a retired firefighter from San Antonio, Texas. Big man, strong, the kind of person who spent 30 years running into burning buildings and never thought much about his own mortality. But retirement has a way of shifting your perspective, and when James went in for his first real comprehensive physical in years, the numbers on the blood pressure reading stopped him cold. 174/104, stage 2 hypertension. His doctor used the words urgent intervention. James started medication immediately. He also changed his diet. He was serious about it, cut out processed food, reduced sodium drastically, started walking every day. After 3 months of real effort, his blood pressure had come down to 155/94. Still too high. His doctor was considering a second medication. That's when James came to see me. And I asked him one question that changed everything. Have you ever tried beets? He looked at me the way most retired Texas firefighters look at a cardiologist who just said the word beets. Skeptical doesn't quite cover it, but James was smart. He had spent 30 years trusting science over instinct when it came to safety protocols at work, so he was willing to hear me out. What I told James is what I'm about to tell you. And I need you to understand the mechanism here, because it's not vague nutritional advice. It's specific, verified, measurable biochemistry. Beets are the most concentrated natural source of dietary nitrates in the entire plant kingdom. 1 cup of raw beets contains more nitrates than almost any other food you could name. And when you eat beets, something extraordinary happens very quickly. Those nitrates move from your digestive system into your bloodstream. Bacteria naturally present in your saliva and mouth begin converting those nitrates into nitrites. Then, in the slightly acidic environment of your stomach, those nitrites convert into nitric oxide. That entire process can begin within 30 minutes of eating beets, and the blood pressure effects can become measurable within 2 to 3 hours. Nitric oxide is what cardiologists sometimes call the body's natural blood pressure medicine. It signals the muscular walls of your blood vessels to relax and open. Not slightly, significantly. Studies conducted at some of the most respected cardiac research centers in the country show that the blood pressure reduction from regular beet consumption can range from 4 to 10 points systolic. That might not sound like much until you understand that a sustained 5-point reduction in systolic blood pressure cuts stroke risk by approximately 14%. A 10-point reduction corresponds to a roughly 20% drop in the risk of a major cardiovascular event. Those are not small numbers. Those are life-altering numbers. But here is where it gets even more interesting, and this is the part that very few people know. Beets contain not only nitrates, but a specific antioxidant pigment called betalain, that reddish-purple compound you see when you cut open a beet. Betalains have their own independent anti-inflammatory effect on blood vessel walls. Chronic inflammation inside your arterial walls makes hypertension worse. It stiffens the vessels. It makes them less responsive. Betalains directly counter that inflammation, which means beets are working on two separate blood pressure pathways at the same time. Nitric oxide for dilation, betalains for inflammation. And there is a third element. Beets are rich in potassium, layering in that same sodium flushing mechanism we discussed with spinach. 3 pathways, 1 vegetable. Now here is what James needed to know and what most people get wrong about beets. He tried beets, bought a can from the grocery store, ate them once, measured his blood pressure, saw no dramatic change, and concluded they didn't work. That is the mistake. And it connects to something fundamental about how beets and nitric oxide function inside the body. Canned beets that have been sitting in sweetened syrup or heavily salted brine have had most of their beneficial nitrate content degraded by the processing, and the added sodium actively works against the blood pressure benefit you're trying to get. You essentially cancel the medicine with the packaging. James needed to use raw beets or 100% pure beet juice with no added sugar or sodium. Fresh roasted beets, raw beets shredded into a salad, or a small glass of pure cold-pressed beet juice every morning. That's the form that preserves the nitrate content and delivers the cardiovascular benefit. We started James on 8 ounces of pure beet juice every morning before breakfast, alongside roasted beets with dinner 3 times a week. Within 2 weeks, his morning readings had dropped to 142/88. After 6 weeks, he was consistently at 136/82. After 3 months, his physician confirmed his readings had stabilized at 131/80. James did not need a second medication. In fact, his doctor had a frank conversation about eventually reducing his first one. James called me on a Tuesday afternoon and said, "Doc, I feel like myself again. That is what I do this work for." But here is what James's story teaches us, and this is the most important point of everything we've discussed today. It is not enough to know which vegetable helps. You have to understand how it works, why the form it comes in matters, and how consistently you have to use it, because every one of these 3 vegetables delivers real, measurable results when used correctly, and virtually no benefit when used incorrectly. Let me give you the specifics now, because this is where knowledge becomes action. The triple combination, putting it all together. Now here is the part I most want you to take away from this video, because I've been a cardiologist for 23 years, and the thing I keep seeing over and over again is that people find one good piece of information and apply it in isolation. They try one thing, it helps a little. They wonder why it didn't help more. The reason is that blood pressure is not a one-pathway problem. It is driven by multiple simultaneous mechanisms in your body. Arterial wall tension, sodium retention, inflammatory damage to vessel walls, nitric oxide availability, potassium deficiency, magnesium deficiency. These are not separate diseases. They are all parts of the same interconnected system. And when you target just one pathway, you're leaving the others untouched. That is why these 3 vegetables are extraordinary when used together. Celery relaxes arterial wall tension through phthalate. Spinach counteracts sodium through potassium, relaxes vessel walls through magnesium, and dilates vessels through nitric oxide. Beets provide the most concentrated burst of nitric oxide available through food, while simultaneously fighting arterial inflammation through betalains. Together, they are targeting 5 separate biological pathways that drive high blood pressure. The National Institutes of Health has estimated that consistent dietary approaches targeting blood pressure can reduce systolic readings by 8 to 14 points. That is comparable to the effect of some first-line blood pressure medications. And unlike medications, there are no side effects of confusion, fatigue, frequent urination, or low blood pressure episodes. You are working with your body's natural design, not overriding it with a chemical. Let me tell you about Carolyn because her story brings everything together in a way that I think you will find genuinely moving. Carolyn was 76, a retired dental hygienist from Charlotte, North Carolina. She had been on blood pressure medication for 11 years, 3 different medications. Her readings had been controlled, hovering around 138/86. Not terrible. But her quality of life had suffered. She was fatigued constantly, dizzy in the mornings, foggy in the afternoons. She told me she felt like she was living at half capacity and she was not willing to accept that as her permanent state. She started all 3 protocols simultaneously at my recommendation. 4 stalks of celery every morning, a spinach-based smoothie 4 mornings a week, and sautéed spinach for dinner 3 nights a week, and 8 ounces of pure beet juice every morning, taken about 30 minutes before she sat down to breakfast. She kept a detailed log, which I want to emphasize because your log is your data and your data is your power. Within the first 2 weeks, her morning readings had dropped to 129/80. After 6 weeks, she was consistently in the 124 to 128 range over 78 to 80, 11 years of being held in place at 138/86. 6 weeks of dietary change and she was 14 points lower. Her physician, a wonderful internist in Charlotte who had been skeptical when Carolyn mentioned what she was doing, called me personally after reviewing her 3-month data. He reduced 2 of her 3 medications. He told me he was going to start recommending these 3 vegetables to every patient with newly diagnosed hypertension before reaching for the prescription pad. That is the conversation I have been wanting cardiologists to have for years. Carolyn told me that the fog lifted after about 3 weeks. Her morning dizziness disappeared. She started walking farther each day because she had the energy for it. She joined a book club at her local library. She drove to see her grandchildren in Raleigh. Things she had quietly stopped doing because her body was running on diminished capacity for over a decade. The vegetables did not cure her. I want to be clear and responsible about that. She still takes 1 blood pressure medication. Her condition still requires monitoring. But 3 ordinary vegetables transformed her daily reality in a way that 11 years of medications alone had never managed. Because medications manage the number. These vegetables started repairing the underlying system. Before we close, I need to give you 3 critical reminders. Please do not skip this section. First, never stop or reduce your blood pressure medication without your doctor's explicit guidance. What these vegetables can do is improve your numbers so significantly that your doctor may decide to reduce your medication. That is a physician-guided decision made while monitoring your readings. It is not a decision you make independently one morning because you've been eating beets for a week. Second, if you are on warfarin or any blood-thinning medication, speak with your physician before dramatically increasing your spinach, kale, or other vitamin K-rich leafy green intake. The vitamin K in those vegetables can affect how warfarin works. This does not mean you cannot eat spinach. It means your doctor may need to adjust your warfarin dose to accommodate the dietary change. That is a manageable conversation, but it must happen. Third, beet juice can interact differently in individuals with kidney disease. The high oxalate content in beets may be a concern if you have a history of kidney stones or reduced kidney function. Again, this is not a reason to avoid beets entirely. It is a reason to mention it to your doctor before making beets a daily habit. These 3 reminders are not meant to scare you. They are meant to empower you, because the safest way to use natural approaches is transparently, with your medical team informed and involved. Here is what I want you to do right now, not someday, right now. The next time you go to the grocery store, put 3 things in your cart: a bunch of celery, a bag of fresh spinach, and a bundle of fresh beets, or a bottle of pure, no added sugar beet juice. If you're in a Walmart, a Kroger, a Publix, an H-E-B, a Safeway, any grocery chain in this country, all 3 of these are available right now for a total of probably $6 to $9. $6 to $9. That is what a natural foundation for blood pressure control costs. And for seniors across this country who are spending $60, $80, sometimes over $100 a month on blood pressure medications and still not reaching ideal numbers, that $6 addition to your grocery cart may be the most important financial decision you make this week. You now know why celery works, with the specific compound phthalide and its arterial wall relaxation mechanism. You know why spinach is extraordinary, with its triple action through potassium, magnesium, and nitric oxide. And you know why beets are the most powerful of the three, delivering the fastest measurable effect through the most concentrated natural nitrate source on the planet. You know the right forms to use and the wrong forms to avoid. You know the right quantities and the right timing. You have the complete picture. And just like Robert in Columbus, who reduced one of his 2 medications, and Dorothy in Savannah, whose physician called me in genuine surprise, and James in San Antonio, who felt like himself again, and Carolyn in Charlotte, who got her life back after 11 years of settling, you now have the same information they had. Use it. Share this video with someone you love who needs it. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss the kind of information that could genuinely change your health. And bring this video to your next doctor's appointment if you need to start a conversation. Your arteries can do more than you think. Your body is more responsive than you've been told. And a grocery store is a more powerful pharmacy than most people have ever been encouraged to believe. Take care of yourself. I will see you in the next video.